happen. So let me make a very big, hairy, audacious prediction. Within 5 years, 80% of all the computing and storage done worldwide could happen in the cloud. But it may take 10 years. Let me make a second big, hairy, audacious prediction. Within 5 years, we'll have 100 billion devices and sensors connected to the net. But more likely, 10 years. The economics and the technology and the standards are all there for this amazing transformation in the next 5 years, but it won't happen for a number of different reasons. The first is technical. We need agreement on the key standards that will allow the cloud to come together. The good news is we have agreement on most of the standards. The bad news is they're not all deployed and not everybody's using them yet. IPv6 is one good example. That's the next protocol of the Internet. It's essential if we're going to move to the Internet of Things, where we have 100 billion devices. But it's taking a little while for all the networks and all the computer companies to embrace and use it. A bigger problem is business practices. How do you get companies that are used to competing on the basis of their technology and their proprietary standards excuse me, to get their act together and work with each other to build a common platform? The good news here is that open standards are being adopted by more and more players. It's being adopted by many of the players in virtual worlds. Open source software is helping promote the adoption of some of these open standards. Another really thorny issue, one that we work quite a bit on in my program at Georgetown, is culture. How do you get users to trust the cloud, to put their data out there on servers that they don't control, servers they might not even be able to locate? That's one problem. Just as significant is the fact that you have to convince the chief information officer in a company to completely change the way they do their computing. And in some cases, to work themselves out of a job the same way the vice president of electricity back in 1920 worked himself out of a job by plugging into the utilities. And that will be challenging. Luckily, the smarter CIOs are listening to their CFO, their chief financial officer, who is telling them to save money, and they're realizing that the cloud is an incredibly effective way to cut their computing costs, often by a factor of 4 or 5. Not only do you get cheaper computing, you also don't have to do upgrades, you don't have to hire a lot of staff to manage your own boxes and your own software. And then the last point is policy, and that again is a very tough issue, and I'll spend the next several slides talking about some of the policy issues that we need to deal with in this world. Speaking of standards, I'm not quite sure why my slides are being reformatted by your software, but one of the first challenges here is for government to embrace this technology and to be an early adopter. And the fact that so many people are involved in this conference is evidence that that's happening. I think the fact that we have a very wired president and a team around him who's committed to using this technology is going to help a lot, just as the fact that Al Gore, my former boss at the White House, actually knew how to use a mouse in 1992, helped push the web forward in the 90s. So there's lots of different pieces of this. One is we have to fix procurement. We're going to have to get away from the old model where procurement regs were written for boxes to be bought and software to be installed. We do know how to buy services, thank God, but cloud services are somewhat different. You don't necessarily know how much you're going to buy, sort of like electricity or water. You pay by the bit, pay by the byte. We need to move aggressively to open standards, in some cases open source software, because that's the platform that much of the cloud will be built on. Perhaps the toughest issue of all is addressing the security concerns, both the real and the imagined security concerns. And you have a very good speaker this afternoon who will discuss some of those issues. And then you have to change your culture and reorganize the organization so you can take advantage of these great technologies. I see 3 possible futures for the cloud in order from pessimistic to optimistic. First is the clouds scenario. This is a world in which we have many different clouds running different proprietary technologies. The systems are not interoperable. They're often running proprietary standards. This is very much like the cable television network business model. You have companies who have control of the bottlenecks. They control who gets on and what applications are provided on their piece of the cloud, and they're not much interested in connecting to other people. This leads to monopolies, or at least duopolies, higher prices, less innovation, less competition. The second scenario is what I call the cloudy skies scenario. You still have distinct clouds, but at least these proprietary clouds can talk to each other and you can move data in between most of these clouds. There's no common middleware, though, and it's very hard to run applications on more than one cloud at a time. Lots of missed opportunities. And then we have the blue skies scenario. This is where you have a cloud of clouds that is like the internet. It's like the network of networks. We have truly interoperable services. I can take data from one place, combine it with a software from another, and pull in somebody else's software and mix it all together and magically have a customized service that meets my needs or my customers' needs. This is what we can hope to have. This is what we got with the internet, partly because of government leadership. Government didn't just fund the initial DARPA grant that created the Internet Protocol. DoD decided that .mil was going to run on the IP protocol, not one of the proprietary systems that were out there, and that kind of brought it all together. Brought the agencies together, brought a lot of contractors and businesses together around this kind of flaky academic network called the Internet. World Wide Web was the same thing. We could have had different browsers that gave you access to only parts of the net, but customers and governments pushed the companies together to a common set of standards. Now we have to decide whether the cloud is going to be an integrated whole, an interoperable system of a cloud of clouds, or whether we're going to have people going in different directions, unconnected to each other.